Another 50 points to the Lions as they continue to build towards that first test. My name's Mark, let's talk rugby. Another decent performance from the Lions. Not perfect, but they are kind of building nicely. Still a lot of things to work on, but decent players and decent coaches. Hopefully they get there, before that first test. But first of all, as well, before we get into the game, a couple of things. One, apologies that this wasn't out yesterday, but I was working while the game was on live, and then when I went to check for the full replay of the game, it wasn't actually up on Now TV until this morning. And I'm not going to review a game just based on highlights. So I decided to wait until I'd watched the game in full, which I've done now, before doing a review. Second then is I've got the Ospreys jersey on in honor of Jack Morgan, who I thought was absolutely outstanding in the game. He got the player of the match, and I think it was a close run thing between himself and Itoje, but he definitely deserved it. Not too many Welsh players in the squad, especially with Tomas Williams having to leave due to injury, which wasn't great, because I thought he was looking really good as well. The game time that he got, but at least it's quality that's there, and certainly Morgan screams quality. Okay, so let's get into the game. So the Reds, they misfire at their first line out and leading to an offside penalty. One of those ones where the ball comes out, somebody knocks it on, and somebody's in front and plays it. So penalty to the Lions. Then they go up the line, but then they mess up their line out. It's kind of a bit too maybe intricate for me for the first line out, because they did kind of set up two dummy pods, players all switching around. Then they went right to the tail, and the Reds actually managed to steal the ball there. But then as they move, the ball goes loose, and Itoje gets there first to the ball. And, Itoje around the park was excellent. Like, just his awareness, as soon as the ball went loose, he was there, he was on it. And, a few really important kind of interventions from him in terms of turning balls over. Then as, they move the ball then to about 10 meters out for a line, but they knock it on, and then the Reds get a penalty from the resulting scrum. And I think it was Stewart that got pinged in that one. I think he got pinged a couple of times in the scrum, and overall, maybe he gave away 4 or 5 penalties in total, because he gave away 2 for high tackles as well. So certainly not the best day at the office for him. Then Pasami, who I thought was really good for the Reds, looking lively early on, a few darts, then he makes a break, and that brings the Reds right up to the edge of 22. Then the strong carries from Canham and Briel, and that gets them to within about 5 meters of the line. Then Tamanga Allen, with a really nice line, and just coming a bit late, he gets over next to the post. That's converted by McLaughlin Phillips for 7-0. Reds with a deserved lead at that stage. Then the Lions, they go to the corner from a penalty. Itoje climbs the line out. They set up the maul. It has momentum, and the backs come in. So Aki actually takes the ball at the back of the maul, and they do go over the line, but they get held up and, drop it to the Reds, and very good defense from them as well, because it looked like, for all the world, it was going to be a try. From here then, the Lions, they look to move the ball. First of all, they're probing into 22 on the right, but Freeman is covered well. The Reds have numbers out there in defence. Then they go left, but Daly's attempted offload, kind of about 10 meters out, is just kind of one of those from behind, out the back, but the back of his hand, but to no one. So the Reds then win a penalty at the resulting scrum, and they kick clear, but it's only to the edge of the 22, and the Lions don't don't allow them to exit the 22. Really good pressure from them, forces a turnover, and Toji again involved there. And then they get a penalty. They go to the corner from that. They move it as the maul stalls. Freeman is in space and goes over on the right, converted by Russell for 7 points all. And the Lions just showing, they can, generate space. It's just about whether they can get the hands working all the time and exploit this space that they are creating. Reds then, they work it up to the 22. They're, seem to be going nowhere. So Pasami, I think it was, tries a cross kick. And it's a really poor cross kick because there's no one from the Reds out there. It's Van der Merwe on his own, but he goes up for it with one hand, juggles the ball back over his own line. And, maybe a smaller, less powerful winger will be in all kinds of trouble as, the Reds winger turns up. But he uses his strength to force his way back over his own line and then combines with James Gibson-Park, who carries it further on, and then the Lions are able to clear. The Reds then back into 22 thanks to a penalty. They move the ball. The Lions shooting up, but this time, really good kick it again, probably from Pasami, I think. But this one really nicely angled in behind, and Fluke, comes steaming onto it, and it just kind of pops up for him, and over he goes to score. Really well worked from the Reds there. Conversion is missed, and it's a conversion that probably should have gotten, honestly. It wasn't that difficult. 12-7, and Reds back in front. They have a nice hands on the Lions, and they make good ground into 22 with Van der Merwe a few meters short, wide left. They then move it back inside, and Freeman goes to the line under the post. We have a TMO check, but it's very clear that he's short. We come back for a penalty for a high tackle. Kelleher taps the penalty. He just goes straight for it, gets caught maybe a meter short. Recycling Porter with Chesham, and there was another forward in behind him as well. He goes over to score, converted for 14 points to 12. Lions in front for the first time in the game. Lions then win a free at a scrum, and they decide to go quickly. Good carry from Morgan, gets him to about 10 metres out. They then move it quickly left, and Van der Merwe stretches out to ground in the corner, converted for 21 points to 12. And the Lions, at that stage, they've really gone up a level. At the restart then, Gibson-Park and Conan kind of leave the ball to bounce between them, each other, neither of them claiming it, and it bounces over the line, and Anderson comes steaming in, dives for it, trying to score a try, but after Timo check is confirmed, the ball actually went dead without anybody touching it, so back to the halfway line for a scrum, and that's pretty much the end of the action in the half. Halftime 21-12 to the Lions, but feels like it could have been more from them. There were a few handling errors. Again, that's something that they will obviously iron out for the most part. Before the test, obviously you're never going to be completely error free in the handling in a test environment, but they certainly will improve on that score. In the second half then, Bundy Aki with a powerful carry into the 22. Jameson Gibson-Park and snipes around the corner. He's scragged, but then offloads to Itoji, who has the power to make the line and score, converted for 28 points to 12. Reds then holding onto the ball, looking to work their way back into the game, but it's nowhere near as dynamic as they were in the first half. They're not really making that much ground, but high tackle from Stewart allows them to kick up the line into the 22. Itoji then steals the line out, and the Lions are able to clear. And again, Itoji, I thought, absolutely immense today. And, they said it in commentary as well. It was the performance of a captain. Lions then win a penalty in the shadow of the post, and they opt for a scrum. They move it right to Aki, then quickly back inside, and then they catch the Reds defence kind of trying to fold, and they're misaligned. So Morgan goes over. Finn Smith converts for 35 points to 12. Then Aki gets over the ball to win a penalty after a really good kick chase from Freeman. They go up the line into 22 from that penalty. Lions go through the phases, stretching the Reds' defense close to the line. Freeman then shows really good strength to spin out of a tackle and over to score, convert for 42 points to 12. Reds then come forward, not working it kind of close to the 22, but again, not really making that much progress. But then they work numbers out wide left, and Daly has to shoot up, and he hurts his arm in an attempt to tackle on Campbell, which does kind of kill the momentum of the move. But he's definitely done some damage to his tackle. Hoping he's okay, but I've read that he's actually gone for a scan on it today, so that's not not looking good, honestly, for him. And that'd be sad, because already we've lost one player to injury, and Daly, I talked about him in previous games, where he's such a great utility player that even if he's not in your mind in terms of a starter, he's one of those players you could put 23 on his back and he gives you a lot of cover. Or if we get injuries elsewhere, like, he can slot in so many positions as well. So he would be a big blow in terms of just the depth of the squad overall, I think. So fingers crossed for him. And not just for us as fans watching the team, but just for him personally as well. Like, it's not a nice thing, going on the lines and then having to come home injured. From here, then the Reds go to the corner from the penalty. They move it 5 meters out from the line, but Itoje then intercepts, and the Lions kick the ball clear. Tim Ryan collects that kick. He tries to chip on the 10-meter line inside the Lions half, but Hugh Jones plucks it out of the air and it shows really good pace to finish in the corner. Conversions missed. We're at 47-12. Lions then reshuffle the back line. They've actually moved Ben Earl into the centres. Gary Ringrose has come on now. He's out on the wing, and Freeman has gone to full back. Morgan then wins another penalty as he gets over the ball. Lions up the line into 22. They're looking for, a final score. We've only got like a minute or so left on the clock. The Reds then turn them over, and Pasami leads a charge up the middle, but Morgan again gets over the ball to win a penalty. Back the Lions go into the 22. Lions then get held up over the line, but there was an offside from the Reds. Back for a penalty. Lions batter away at the line. They move it, and there's definitely a knock-on in the midfield from the Reds as they went for an intercept, and then it's cleared up after a check that it was a deliberate knock-on from Ryan. Lions then opt for a scrum from that penalty. They go right from the scrum. Finn Smith with a nice long cutout pass to Ringrose. It goes over in the corner. Conversions missed. 52 points to 12 is the full-time score. So yeah, overall decent from the Lions. Again, there are work-ons. Struggling at scrum in the first half, especially on Will Stewart's side. And even when the replacements were made, they still had some struggles there. Line-out went well. Defensively, certainly Itoje so good at disrupting the opposition. A couple of misfires on their own line-out, but I think overall it was certainly better than before. But we're going to have a look at some of the stats, and then we'll come back and talk about some individual players, etc. So let me pull the stats up here now, the official stats for the game. There we are there. Okay, so starting off tries. So 8 tries to 2. The Reds got those 2 early tries and got themselves out in front. But, the Lions, once they got in front for the first time in the game, they never really looked back, especially once they went to kind of 21-12. Even though the Reds theoretically had a chance to come back, it felt like the Lions were in control just in terms of their ability get into the 22 and come away with points was so much better than the Reds. On attack then, So possession was 49% to 51. Lions just about shading it. And the same with territory, 49 to 51. And, it was fairly close as well from half to half. So possession went from 50-50 to 48-52 in favour of the Lions in the second half. And then the territory actually stayed 49-51 for both halves as well. So different to the Force, where there was a big swing in the second half towards the Lions. And that clean breaks then 5 from the Reds, 19 from the Lions. And, again, the Lions just showing their ability to, not just that they find space, just the amount of talent they have in there, the ability then to, turn a beaten defender into a break has been really good. Sorry, that was 10, not 19 from them, but still double the Reds. And then the defenders beaten 27 for the Reds. So about 1 of 5, just under 1 of 5 conversion for them. And then the Lions 19. So, 1 and 2 from them. So again, that's just a conversion from defenders beaten into breaks, for the Lions, certainly better. Offloads then 5 for the Reds, 13 for the Lions. The Lions looking to keep that ball alive, keep it moving, especially in the second half when you could see that the Reds were kind of tiring a bit and not really offering too much in terms of their own attack. Then Rooks won 95% for the Reds and 98% for the Lions. So Reds not as aggressive at the breakdown as we saw from the Western Force, certainly the first half of that game. And the Lions, I think, a little more comfortable on their own ball, but also, I think Jack Morgan in that back row really made a difference in terms of how competitive the Lions were when the Reds had the ball. Mauls then, the Reds went 1 from 1 and the Lions went 4 from 6. And, certainly a bit of a work on there, the fact that they drove over the line but couldn't actually get the ball down. Definitely something they're going to have to work on. Turnovers conceded then 14 for the Reds and 17 for the Lions. So it felt like the Lions got the more kind of impactful turnovers in the game, especially, with Jack Morgan there. You saw that 7 on his back over the ball and you were just expecting the whistle to go or for the Lions to come out with the ball. And, it was kind of interesting as well. This referee allowed more kind of competition at the breakdown, and I felt he was clear as well in terms of just straight away telling players that don't compete, whereas before it was for me not as clear in terms of just the communication with the players. On to then kick, pass, run. So meters run 276 for the Reds and 548 for the Lions. And then, it was a very run heavy game. Kicks from hand 16 to 18. So, neither team getting above 20, which normally you expect teams to be somewhere in the mid 20s at least. Other teams, the likes of France, might be up kind of in the 30s. Passes then, it's 167 to 186. So the Lions then a bit more there, and then runs 123 to 118. So the Lions actually with more meters from less runs. It's only 5 runs between them, but still, almost exactly double the number of meters that they gained. So the Reds read about 1.5 or so meters per run for them, and the Lions almost 5 meters per run for them as well. So really good performance from the Lions in terms of just getting over that gain line. I think that was a big kind of in the first half, I think against the Force they kind of struggled with, and then they fix it in the second half, and for this game as well, they look really good. And the Reds as well, like in the first half, the first kind of 20 minutes or so, their forwards were getting over that gain line, but then the second half, as I said, they had long, going through 15 18, whatever phases with the ball and not really going too far. And there was really only discretion from, or indiscretion to say, from Will Stewart on a couple of occasions that allowed them to make progress where it looked like the Lions just had to be patient and, turnover or penalty for them was going to come, especially with Morgan on the field. Onto defending then. The Reds with 138 tackles to the Lions, 169, and tackling at, sorry, I've got to lean in here, excuse me, 88% to 86. So two really good, in terms of defensive stats. Like, we talked about it, in the club game. If you're anywhere kind of in the mid 80s, you're doing very well. Test level as well, it's excellent too. So decent defense from both teams in terms of at least making their first up tackles. Onto discipline then, no cards in this game. Penalties conceded, 12 for the Reds, 9 for the Lions. So Lions just about staying in single figures. And again, that's kind of always where you want to aim for is, getting that kind of, single figures and staying on the right side of the referee, certainly compared to your opposition. Okay, on to set piece, just to cut out a sneeze there. So the Reds went 9 from 11 on their own scrum, Lions 4 from 4, but it doesn't really tell the whole tale because, again, the Reds won, a number of penalties on their own ball. So, something the Lions, it's been going well for them so far on the tour. Definitely going to have to kind of tweak that and fix it. The line at 10, 11 for 13 for the Reds, but again, a lot of scrappy ball, mainly due to Itoje getting up there and competing. And then the Lions 13 from 15, hiccup early on, but overall I thought it was decent. Keller and Cowan-Dickey doing fairly well, and obviously the jumpers for the Lions as well. So let's talk about then some individual player stats. Right, so let's look for meters run. So, you got Tommy Freeman there with 68, Hugh Jones 75, Johan van der Merwe with 95. Then from the forwards, you got Jack Morgan hitting 50, Jack Conan with 41, and Maro Itoje with 31 as well. So, all around display from those guys. Then, in terms of, defending, number of tackles made. So you got, Keller up there with 17 along with Itoje and Conan as well, but Jack Morgan leading the way with 21. So, some really good performances in the back row. Thought Tom Curry again, not that he's done anything wrong, it's just that he's kind of getting overshadowed by some of the players he's playing with. I thought Morgan definitely was the standout in the back row. Conan was decent, and then Curry was, I think, a step down compared to either of those. And if we just kind of quickly run through the team as well, just kind of give you my impressions on them. Elliot Daly started a fullback. Again, I thought he was good, and I think he's going to be a miss as well if he is going to be injured now. So again, fingers crossed for him. Tommy Freeman, he took his tries well, especially the second one. He didn't see as much of him kind of coming looking for the ball the way he normally does, in his club game, coming off his wing, looking to get involved. But you don't know whether it was a strategy for him to stay wide or, but overall, I think, he got 2 tries. You can't complain too much about it. Then Hugh Jones, got himself a try, and overall good, like some decent attacks from him. Pretty good in defense as well, and his try obviously came from his own awareness and his own quick thinking to stick his hand up and intercept that chip. And then just had the pace to finish it then as well. Bundy Aki, a bit of a mixed bag from Bundy. I think some really good carries, some good involvements in some of the tries as well. But, hands let him down on occasions as well. And we've seen that with Bundy in the past, that sometimes the hands aren't quite up to the level that you need to be, not saying it's all the time, but he does have kind of days like that. But overall, he's been decent, and Bundy Aki doesn't play too many bad games either. Not that this was bad, just compared to previous performances. And I think, Jones was certainly the better of the two in this game. Duhan van der Merwe then got himself a try. Had that almost disaster with the ball as well. And maybe those lapses, in concentration and defense as well is one of the things I think that counts against him. Then Finn Russell, still, looks for all the world that he is going to be the starting 10. And he just showed again why that is in this game. Really good performance from him without doing anything too fancy, but he's reached that level now where he knows he can have that influence on the game without having to, pull out tricks left, right and centre as well. So really good from him. I thought James Gibson Park then at 9 was good. And especially with, Thomas Williams being out now as well, I think in terms of him being the starting 9 for the test, it's looking like it's gonna go that way. I thought Williams might have, been maybe, a bit of an outside bet in terms of, taking that starting berth, because before the tour, certainly people were all speaking about Gibson Park, but, Williams has had an excellent season in the Premiership. I think he's Premiership player of the season. And, he came in here, you could see he was in good form, and just his speed of movement and his passing, etc. So I think he's going to be a big miss. But Gibson Park went well today. Again, one criticism I have about him, we didn't see it in this game, but it could happen in the test, is just that awareness of when the opposition are competing on the ball, just saying to his forwards, listen, I need you to secure the ball for me because they're turning over too much. A lot of the time it has to wait until the coaches actually say something about that. So we'll see that how things go with that. Andrew Porter then got himself a try. Thought he was busy around the park. Did well in the scrums too. And, nothing overly spectacular from him, but just kind of a steady game. Similar to Kelleher, really, did a set piece well and contributed around the park too. There was one though where the lines had maybe like a 4-on-2, 5-on-2 out wide, and the pass went to him, and he dropped it. I don't know whether it was, I'm not putting all the blame on him, because it looked like maybe the pass was delayed a little bit and he kind of a little bit overran it because of that. But yeah, those kind of things you want, in a test for that to stick, that kind of thing. So again, just little work-ons. Will Stewart, though, I think out of everyone that played today, probably the one player who set themselves back with their performance, honestly, because 2 penalties in the scrum, 2 penalties for high tackles as well, and, not really a great contribution from him other than that in the game as well. So certainly, it hasn't done himself any favours with that. Maro Toji, though, got himself a try. Plenty of, steals, disruption in the lineouts, snaffled a couple of balls as well, like, intercept, got a loose ball as well, and really good leadership from him as well. So brilliant from him. And, if Morgan wasn't on the pitch, he would have been my player of the game. Ollie Chesham, nothing hugely stand out from him, whether good or bad. And, I think that locking slot beside the Choji is certainly up for grabs. The other lock that's looked really good so far has been Joe McCarthy, but I don't know, are you going to play Toji and McCarthy together in the test? I'm not sure, but certainly for me, they're the 2 standout locks, especially when you think, Tyburn, you could probably put him in the back row. Then, talking about the back row, Tom Curry, again, no major kind of contributions in terms of standing out, but didn't do much, didn't do much to kind of discredit himself either. He was kind of a steady Eddie, but the problem is with massive competition at back row, it's got to be more than that. And Jack Morgan kind of showed the way today. He got his try, but lots of penalties, getting over the ball, very competitive. There was some really good carries from him as well. And that's kind of the level that players have to be reaching to really be saying, listen, I dare you not to pick me for the test. And Tom Curry, I don't think, is there. Jack Morgan has been impressive in his performances. Jack Conan, kind of in between the two, I'd say, not as good as Morgan, but some decent contributions from him. Luke Cowan-Dickey then came on, decent contribution around the field. Again, I think, himself and Kelleher kind of looking to see who's going to be 16 for the test as long as Sheehan is fit. Sheehan is, a bit ahead of them, I would say, at this stage. Then, Ellis Genge, Finlay Bealham came on, decent contributions from them. Although, again, penalties given away in the scrum, you definitely don't want to be, coming off the bench and doing that kind of thing. You want to come off the bench and kind of help kind of turn around the scrum for the team or drive it home as well. So certainly work there to be done. James Ryan, he's one of those players where he's never going to stand out as an amazing contributor around the field or wherever. He just goes in there and secures your ball at the ruck and that kind of thing, and then contributes in the line out and stuff like that. So maybe he's the one that you want because of that, next to Itoje. Let Itoje do all the kind of flash stuff, winning turnovers, etc., and have Ryan kind of do a bit more of the donkey work. And maybe as a combination, they'd work well. But again, I think that second locking position certainly up for grabs. Ben Earl, kind of interesting for him because he came on and played in the centres, and with only really Conan there as an 8, he probably, if you're going to play for the Lions, you'll play wherever they put you, right? But still, he'd want to see some game time, more game time at 8 as well, just to kind of put his case forward. Then Alex Mitchell at 9. I think with Williams gone now, maybe thinking that he's going to be the backup for the test, but all these players, they're not going to be satisfied with, obviously everyone wants to get into the test 23, but you want to get into the starting game as well. But I think he's got a bit to go to kind of overtake Gibson Park for that. Then Finn Smith, kind of similar with Russell. I think for me, he is the backup 10. Some really good contributions, but a bit wayward as well with some of his game management too. Kind of a loose kick that went dead and stuff like that. So gotta maybe just fix things a little bit there. But overall, we know what he can do as a player, and he's someone that if he does have to come on in the test and maybe close out a game, he has the ability for it. Then Gary Ringrose got himself a try again, coming off the bench. So be interested to see if he's going to get a start and who he starts beside as well, because at the moment, it's looking like, for me at least, you go with Russell, Tuipulotu and Hugh Jones as your 10, 12, 13 axis, simply because of the understanding between them. So, Ringrose, can he shine in terms of building up, is he going to get game time with Tuipulotu, or are you going to use him with Aki because those two know each other anyway? And then is it going to come down to a selection between, not just individual players, but, is it better to have Aki Ringrose as your midfield or Tuipulotu Jones as your midfield. And then I think if you're looking at that, then you have to look at the, if Russell is going to be your starting 10, then the understanding between Russell and those combinations, obviously that kind of, there's an advantage there for Tuipulotu and Jones having played with Russell for Scotland as well. So, but then Ringrose again, he's another one of those players, kind of like Daly, that you can put 23 in his back, and you can put him on, he was on the wing today. You can stick him on the wing. He can cover you in the centres as well. So, he does have kind of ways into the 23 without necessarily being a starter, which isn't always the case for centres. A lot of time, if you're a centre, you're starting or you're sitting in the stands. So so that's kind of my opinions on each of the players. Again, we'll keep doing this as you go through the different games. We got another one. It's the Brumbies, right? Just let me double check. Is it the Brumbies at the weekend? My brain is certainly saying it is, but I don't always trust my memory now. Now that I'm old and getting a bit grey. But let me check here on the schedule. It's the Warthogs. Yeah, the Warthogs next. So the Taz, who are actually my Super Rugby team. When I used to, when I lived in Japan and I used to watch a lot of Super Rugby, the Taz were my team there that I supported. And, I used to do a bit of writing, not much, but like covering Six Nations and stuff like that for Green and Gold Rugby, which is the main kind of fan site in Australia for rugby union. And, I just remember those days of supporting the Taz. Don't watch them as much anymore because, it's just difficult with time and stuff like that. And the fact that as well, South African teams aren't in Super Rugby anymore, it's not as appealing to me anymore. But still, I'd definitely be cheering for the Lions against the Taz, though. But the same way, if the Lions are playing against Leinster, I'd be cheering for the Lions as well. Just because once the Lions are on, you kind of lose all other, well, not lose, but you kind of put aside all other kind of affiliations, as it were. But yeah, that game we'll definitely be covering on the channel. It's on Saturday. I've got the day off, so we will be able to cover that in full on the day as well. And I think I'm off on I think they're playing Brumbies then midweek, and I think I'm off that day. I think it's the Wednesday. I might be off as well, so should be able to cover that too. And then the game after that, I think, is against Invitational Australia New Zealand side. I think I might be working that weekend, so you'll have to wait probably until actually the Sunday, unless I'm able to see the game some other way on the Saturday evening for that. But yeah, that is everything from this one. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments.